Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Flatty Daddies. Today, I was going to go out catfishing on the Susquehanna after some channel cats because it's getting cold out, but I'm kind of truckless right now. It's at the shop getting inspected and it needs a lot of work, so I don't even have a vehicle to get out to the creek to do a little fishing. So what I'm going to do today is another reel review. So I've had these reels for a little over a year each now. So I've got an idea of how durable they are compared to each other. This one I've had a little bit over a year. Could have used it a little bit more, but they've both caught some good sized fish. I've casted them a lot. I've put them through their paces. It was a pretty busy year of fishing. So I've got an idea of how durable they are compared to each other. And I got an idea of their features and how well they work. So today we're going to tear them apart, look at the insides, and I'll discuss which one I like more, which one I think is the better value, and just the overall quality of the reels and whether you should get them or not. Alright, so I'm going to start with the KastKing 60R. Right off the bat, it's got the thumb push bar. I like that a lot in a bait casting reel. It's not necessary. It's just kind of handy when you're casting. It's all metal on the outside, aluminum. It weighs in at 12.6 ounces, and it's got 13.2 pounds of drag, which isn't bad. It's definitely enough. Sometimes when you have a giant on, you struggle with it, but it'll bring it in eventually. It's got enough to bring in a big flathead or big blue, especially for the size of the reel. When you first get these, they're really smooth. I mean, they feel like you're holding a $150, $200 reel. They really do. Over time, and I've got some older ones, they do get a little bit rough as you're cranking. There's a worm gear in there. Where it meshes up to the main drive gear, it gets a little bit rough, a little bit worn down. Still works just fine, and I know a lot of reels do this. You could replace the part. You can get replacement parts for KastKing. You got to go on their website, but you can get them. I think they have a 1-year warranty. But otherwise, nothing else really seems to wear down on these. I really like them. That you can get them right around $52, $53 for this model. Smaller ones are cheaper, bigger ones are more, obviously. But for the price, it is a solid reel. I'll just say it right off the bat. This is a good reel for $50 some. So now I'm going to tear it apart so you can see the insides of it, and once I'm done with that, I'll tear apart the Abu Garcia so you can see the insides of that. So I like to start right here. I take this screw out, then I'll take that little plate off, I'll take this nut off, and then you can pull the whole handle off. Well, there's a little ring in there, and then you start with these and pull those off. So I'm going to spare you the time. I'm not going to show you me actually taking it apart, but I'll show you the insides once I take it apart. Okay, so when you take these apart, you want to take these off, or unscrew them before you unscrew this. This holds some of the internals together. This bolts it to the frame. So take these off, and then you pull it out, and then you can go ahead and unscrew these if you want to get into your drag and all that. So I'm going to take these off, and then we'll see some of the inside of the reel here. Okay, so like I said, these screws are keeping this whole plate on. Underneath of this is your drag and a bunch of gears, your clutch, all that. So you just want to be careful with that. So also take note, see how this is angled down. That's kind of important. This washer deal, it's like a spring washer. It's got to go back on like that. So take that off. Just remember how it goes. You can unscrew your drag mechanism. It's a little tight right now. I don't know what's going on there. Normally that comes off a lot easier. Some dirt in here. So you unscrew that. This screwdriver is a little overkill. And while you're doing this, make sure you're holding it together because there's some springs in there that'll push it apart. And you don't want to do that. There's little pieces that'll go flying if you're not keeping it together. So when you take these screws off, just be careful. See? Now pull it straight up because there's parts in there that you don't want. Until you're familiar with this reel, even though it's simple, you don't want to lose them. So you got these two springs here. I don't know if you can see it. These just keep everything kind of tight and together. You can take them off, just remember to put them back on. So as you can see, it's pretty basic inside, and that's actually, I like that in a reel. Less parts to go wrong. Nice simple mechanism. So this is your drag in here, and that's one of the most important things when you're looking for a flathead reel. So let me take this apart here and I'll show you. Also, there's two washers here. They go in between this bearing and this drag plate here. So just remember that. I've messed that up before and you're like, what the heck's going on with my reel? It's grinding and doing a bunch of dumb stuff. That's it right there. So I'm going to take this part so you can see the drag washers, because like I said, I feel like that's an important part of a reel and how it's designed. So as you can see, they're carbon fiber in here. There's I don't need to take it apart. There's one on this side and there's one on this side. This gear is designed to go into your reel a certain way. There's a little bit of lip here that goes towards the handle part of your reel. This goes towards the internals. So just remember that. It's important. I messed that up before. That's why I'm done saying something about it. So basically you got two discs and it rides on these two plates. It's good to keep these clean. You get some grease in there or something, your drag goes to hell. So I haven't cleaned this reel too much this year. It's actually held up pretty well, but I will be cleaning it before I put it back together. So this is where I was talking about this little worm gear, where it meets up with this. Over time it gets a little bit of play in there and it starts to make some noise. Still works just fine, casts just fine. You know, it's just a minor annoyance. But so I just want to show you, I'm not going to tear it completely apart. There's a good size bearing in here where most of the pressure is going to be sitting. It's actually not a bad design. But yeah, everything's metal in here except for this little plastic piece. It's all stainless. As you can see, there's no corrosion or anything like that. Stainless and brass. It's a pretty solid reel. So then you got this. This is one of the braking mechanisms, centrifuge, or I forget the term. You guys can look it up. Basically, when you're casting, it helps it from free spooling and getting, you know, all birds nested up. It's not a bad feature to have, especially on this price point. So, wow, that's a mess. I love mono. But as you can see, it's a solid frame. Nothing fancy, but it's solid. Okay, so I've loosened these screws. It's just these screws that hold this plate onto the frame. So you just, well, I thought I loosened them. They're kind of long-winded for how little they are. I'm a real professional, guys. Okay. So, as you can see, there's 3 bushings on this. They go right there. They're just spacers. Yeah, they're plastic, but they're not gonna wear out. There's no reason for them to wear out. Perfectly fine that they're plastic. So in here, you got, it's very basic. This is your clicker, and this is your spool, like your level wind drag right here. It's metal. At first I thought that was just the greatest thing in the world, but after watching some other reviews and, you know, just reading up on them, a lot of these are plastic, and that's actually not a bad thing, because if you were to get your finger stuck in here, you wouldn't mind that shearing off, or else this could really hurt you. Also, supposed to help with casting too, having a plastic one. Not really sure how, but anyway, I don't think this is so much a bad thing as long as you watch where your finger goes. They don't wear down, they don't get noisy or anything like that. They're definitely quality parts, but it's a very simple design, and I like simple, like I said before. In here is another bearing. That's where your spool rides. That other bearing is the other part where the spool rides. But like I said, very simple, very complete. Just, you know, it's got everything it needs, but nothing extra. So that's basically the inside of these reels. All quality parts. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the Abu Garcia Ambassadeur C3 6500. Let me just start with some specs here. So right from their website, it's got 15 pounds of drag. So 1.8 more pounds than this guy. And that might not sound like much, but that is actually a huge difference, and I've noticed it while I'm bringing in big fish. You could crank down on the drag on this and stop a 30-pound flathead from pulling any line if you really wanted to. This one, it's not going to do that. It'll slow the fish down as much as you need it to, but this one could actually stop it. I don't know why you would want to do that, but just saying, it can do that. Also, it's held up very well. I haven't noticed any of the drag diminishing. Like it stops just as well as it when I first got it. This one, I have one that's probably about 3 years old, and the drag does seem a little bit worn out. I know that's not really a fair test. Obviously this is only a little over a year old, but I really don't think this one's going to have that issue. Also, cosmetically, this is a nice looking reel. Pretty much match with anything with the silver and black color. It doesn't have the thumb bar here. It's got the little push button. Not really a performance issue. It's just like whether you like that or not. The clicker is plastic and kind of feels a little chintzy. I gotta say, it might be the biggest drawback of this whole reel is this clicker system. This is a nice simple metal knob. Click it on, click it off. There's no play in it. There's no slop. It just feels sturdy. This kind of wobbles when you're moving it. It's almost like an afterthought. Like oh crap, we have to put a clicker on this. That's probably my biggest complaint about this reel. So everything else, I like it. This is made in Sweden, made in China. For you guys that's important too. Yeah, I get it, but you pay for it too. This is double the. This is actually more than double the price. This runs about $120. You might be able to get it on sale sometimes. Like I said, this is $52. So right off the bat, paying way more money. So let's take a look at this and figure out why it's more money and if it's worth it. So I'm going to take this apart now, and it's very similar to the KastKing. You take that screw off, there's a nut under here, comes apart, then you got the 3 main screws, you take that off, and then these hold in your innards. So once again, I'm going to spare you guys the time on that. Alright, real quick, I don't know how well you can see it using the GoPro, but this thing's little locking ring is just a ring. There's no little washer that goes underneath. That's really a minor change, but it actually is really nice, because on this KastKing, when you take it apart, you take this little lock ring off, and when you take it off, it shoots every time. It's just how it happens. You just gotta be ready for it. But then there's this like paper thin little washer underneath to hold it in, to hold this all together, and that is so easy to lose, and when you lose it, it's hard to find. So this is actually really nice. It's just a little thicker, so it's just that holding it in. I really like that idea. Alright, so right off the bat, you can notice some differences here. Let's look at this centrifugal brake, however you say that. It's got 6 pins for stopping. These little things will slide out and ride on the internals of this housing. And that's going to give you a much smoother cast, and it's going to prevent backlashing a lot more. And I gotta say, I don't think I've ever got a bird's nest in this thing. And I'm not the world's greatest bait caster caster. So it really does work well. Yeah, if you're really stupid with it and you're not paying attention, you could backlash this. All reels can backlash. But this really helps to prevent that. It slows that spool down enough when it hits the water that it doesn't keep going and spin up and create a bird's nest, rat's nest, whatever you want to call it. So that's already a good feature. This is not plastic, just so you know. This is aluminum. It's just painted. There's a spot, there's a couple scratches in the black paint, and you can see it's shiny underneath. This is metal, so I'm sure on there it looks like plastic. It's not. This is a little bit, that is plastic in there. I don't see that ever breaking, and it's probably for weight purposes. So that's, don't look at that plastic and think it's going to be an issue. It's not. Once again, this is metal as well. It's all aluminum, and then just still got to take these two off, take this off, and that'll pop apart. Alright, so I just took that off. You can see it is actually a little bit more complicated in here, and this little plastic piece is here versus there's only the little plastic piece like this in the KastKing. This is all stuff that's not going to get any kind of pressure on it. I can see why they did plastic, but I'm kind of old school. I like seeing metal in my reels. Like I said, not that big of a deal, but I like seeing metal, and I'm sure there's a reason why it's plastic. So don't jump all over me. If you know why, you can leave it in the comments. But I'm just showing you the difference in here. Very similar setup here. I'm going to take apart this drag so you can see what if there's any differences. Okay. So you got some plates here. You got this little. So already you can see there's a whole other set of carbon fiber washers and another plate. Take that apart. There's a plate on the inside. So you can see there's some little tabs they got to fit in that hole. So just take it apart and put it down the way you found it. Makes putting it back together a lot easier. Both of these have very small schematics that it comes from, and even on the websites they're not very big. So it's best to just remember how you took it apart, even if you got to take some pictures as you're doing it. So, alright, so on the back side I was expecting to see some more. To be honest, I never took this one apart. It's new, I didn't clean it yet. So there is some kind of ring on the back here. It looks like it's another set of drag. It might be nylon. It goes right up against that plate. So there's 3 drag washers, so there's still one more than the KastKing right there. They're a scotch smaller, but I think they have very similar surface sizes. Very similar setup, except the KastKing likes to have it on this side. Like I said, this is definitely a much better drag system. I've noticed it while fishing. I like it a lot. So they did a pretty good setup here. And I'm gonna, before I put it back together, I'm gonna clean off these plates. Sometimes they get a little bit of like carbon dust build up in there, or you get a little bit of grease in there. It just kind of packs together and it makes it not as effective. It slips on you a little bit, so I'm going to clean that out. Haven't noticed it with this guy, but may as well clean it since it's apart. So another difference is this the spool rod, whatever you want to call this, comes out. As far as the KastKing, it's kind of built in, so that probably helps with casting distance, because this does cast further than the KastKings. Even though they're called KastKings, the Abus cast way farther, hands down. So I'm going to take this out. Again, it's a very, very light spool. It's aluminum, but it's very light. So same deal here. These 3 screws, take them out, and it should come right apart. Never get it the first try. You kidding me? Thank God for video editing. Alright. So, here's the inside of this. Also a very simple mechanism, and as you can see, this has the plastic line spool gears, or whatever, level line gears, sorry. It's very well greased too. I'm probably not even going to touch that because that's still in good shape. Here's the clicker, more plastic on the inside. Just a very simple spring mechanism, all metal there. But it's a very simple design. Once again, I like simple. Simple means it's easier to fix if it does break. Probably going to be cheaper too. It's got these little spacer bars, and it looks like I lost one already, so I got to find that. So I just got to remember to put them back on. Okay, I just spent like 15 minutes looking for the third bushing that goes in here. This only has two. I just reviewed the footage. There's only two, so don't freak out if you can only find two. I think there's just the two upper ones that have bushings. This bottom one does not. Okay, I got them both back together now, and I'll go over a couple more of the features that I like and dislike. On the KastKing, you notice it's got a nice big handle, just for the stock handle that it comes with. The Ambassador comes with one that's almost like a little tinker toy. It's so small, and it's almost like they want you to buy the power handle, which I probably will eventually. Just, I don't know if you can see, probably not. This is just way bigger. It's got more cranking power. It just feels right in the hand. This thing is just cranking away like a, you know, I'm gonna get him, I'm gonna get him. So I'll probably upgrade that eventually. But it's not a deal killer. It still works. It's still enough. It's just small. So the question now is, which one of these should you get? Well, it depends on how much money you have and how much you're willing to spend on a reel. This one's more than double the price, but there's a reason for it. It is just a very solid reel. It's got more stopping power, which I think is more important than anything in a fishing reel. And it casts really well. It's smooth. You know, it looks nice. It's made in Sweden, which is pretty cool, not China. So yes, this is the better reel, and there's a lot of reasons for it. But should you get it? Like I said, if you can afford it, get it. I'll probably be getting another one of these. I have another one of these, and I'm probably going to get another one too, if I can find one on sale. But when you're just getting out, or just getting started, this is a solid reel. I'll definitely probably replace one of these if they ever fall in the river. So for $50 to $53, this is a phenomenal reel, and you're not going to regret getting it. The drag's a little bit less, and it gets a little bit rough over time, but it stops. It does what it needs to do. The red color can be a little bit off-putting depending on what your rod looks like and if you care about that kind of stuff. I use the B&M Silvercat Magnums, and it actually pairs really nice with it. Just the color combo looks really well. But so does the Abu. I mean, it's the silver and black. It pairs with anything. It looks good. So when it comes down to it, it's how much you want to spend. Solid reel for the money. Great reel for the money. But overall, they're both good reels, and you won't be upset with either one. I'll continue to use both of these, and you know, maybe in another couple of years I'll have another opinion, but right now I like them both. Alright guys, well thanks for watching, and if you made it this far, I really do appreciate it. It means a lot to me. Right now it's a little bit slow. Once I get my truck back, I'll be getting back on the river. So if you came here just for the reel review, consider subscribing to the channel. We put out a lot of catfishing videos in the summer. We do tournaments. We go down to the Potomac, catch blue cats in the winter, do some channel catfishing here and there, but it's mostly flathead fishing. So if you're into that, click subscribe and hit that little bell icon, and you'll get alerted. I put out a video every week. No matter what, I'll get a video out. So thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for the next one.